Ladies and gentlemen, with all due respect, it was a choke job. Let's just call it what it is. What is the definition of a choke job, Shannon and D.O.? It's doing what you always do, what you're accustomed to doing until the moment arrives, and then you don't. That is the epitome, that is the definition of what we're talking about here.
All right, so Domonique, I'll start with you as our beloved former Raven. You were there in the seats the other day with your 10-year-old son who was devastated. Is that fair? Is it fair to say the Ravens choked and their quarterback choked?
I mean, I think you could say for the team. I think it's a little unfair to say for the player as an individual. I think, like, when you say choke, to me, that feels like you shrivel up and you're awful in the biggest moment, like a clutch situation. Lamar was okay. Well, that might be giving him more credit. Yeah. They all, as a group, were bad, and Lamar was part of the problem. I wouldn't say choke, though, but I do think that they probably squandered one of the best opportunities that they can ever have. A Chiefs team that's kind of down, a home playoff game against the Texans, and then a home playoff game against the Chiefs, with this team playing as well as any team in recent history, frankly. Yeah. For them not to pull it out is, I mean, I guess choke is a word that comes to mind.
Yeah, look, if we're assessing blame, I see the question on our screen, who deserves the most blame for the Ravens' loss on Sunday? Everything is always going to begin and end with the quarterback. I understand that. But there's a person who has a voice in his helmet who I think, Jeff, is the place I would start. How
Absolutely. The offensive coordinator and Harbaugh. I mean, how about we run the football? Like, if you want to set a quarterback up for failure, let's have this game plan. Because that's what you played into exactly what the Chiefs do well, and you don't do great. Like, you have been a run the football, wait for explosive plays to develop, do all those things the entire season. You get to this game, you're down 10 points, and you act like you're down 40. You're going to play drop-back football where Zay Flowers and Andrews are your two go-to, and he's just off an injury, and Likely's playing something. The game plan itself failed, not only Lamar Jackson, but the Ravens as a whole. And I thought, when you think of a choke job, if you want to say the coaches and the plan going in, that was a choke job, because if that was your plan, and they got 6 little DBs back there, or 5 DBs and 3 down linemen and 3 linemen, like everything about that, the way the Chiefs played it, was dictating, go be physical with them. You're the Ravens, and the defense was holding serve, and you never did it. Yeah. Like, you literally never ran. I mean, Gus Edwards ran 3 times. Like, are you joking me? I mean, there was nothing about that game plan that made any sense to me. And we're texting about it while it was going on. Yeah. I thought that was the failure.
Their running backs had a combined total of 6 carries in the game.
Come on.
How do we explain? I sit here, we're whatever we are, 36 hours removed from the game, and I'm still perplexed. Absolutely. I don't know what they went in thinking they needed to accomplish, or why the things that were happening in the game would have changed that.
It seemed like the Ravens coaching staff outsmarted themselves. They did the thing that no good team, no good player, no good broadcaster does, is you played somebody else's game and you let them dictate and change what you had been so successful at. You are a running football team, and you had the ability to throw it when they packed the box, and they didn't have to do that. And so it seemed like the Ravens came into this game with the mindset that, the Chiefs are going to throw this at us, so we're going to go in ready to throw the ball all over the yard, and that is not what the situation called for.
And say this, if you would have scripted the way you want a defense to play you, this is what you would ask for if you're the Ravens. Go put a bunch of little bodies in there, bro. Like we'll make this a gritty, nasty football game, and that plays into our favor. We're at home. We can run the ball. We can shorten the game. All the things that if you're the Ravens, you want to do, and you do the exact opposite. Like the Chiefs literally gave them what they wanted, and they refused to freaking take it.
It was pretty startling because it's not the team we've seen, right? And I mean, there may be a game or two throughout the year, but for the most part, this was a red-hot, stacked-looking Ravens team. To Domonique's point, the opportunity here, that's where the choke happens, right? You're presented with an opportunity that's not likely to repeat itself. The offense was humming. You don't know what the wide receiver group's going to look like next year. It's probably going to be different. The defense was by the way, held Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs scoreless in the second half of this game on Sunday. Their coordinator is having his second head coach interview in the last 24 hours this morning with the Seattle Seahawks. So he could be gone. So the Chiefs, as you mentioned, I know they're back in the Super Bowl, but they felt kind of gettable this year, right? Like that nobody got them, but they felt like, so you're not going to necessarily have that opportunity again. And to show up and play your worst game, design your worst game, right?
Yeah, design your worst game, for sure.
Like penalties. The Chiefs got 5 first downs by penalty. Like it was mistake after mistake.
Maybe
and
it's
just,
maybe
they got to be sick.
Maybe it's just me, but every time you name one group or one player, I feel like we're letting somebody else off.
Right.
Amen.
Like I don't want
system failure.
I don't want to pile on Lamar,
Yes.
but once you start blaming the offensive coordinator, I'm like, yeah, but Lamar was messing up too. And when you start blaming Lamar, I start thinking about the OC, and then I start thinking about the penalties.
Oh.
And it just reminds me through the course of this season with the Ravens, they haven't been beaten this entire season. They beat themselves, and I know a lot of coaches say that and they think they mean it, but not like the Ravens. The Ravens have actually given away all their games with the exception of the one where they benched their players to rest for the playoffs.
Right.
They gave all the games that they lost. They gave them away. They had them under control.
When
They did this in this game too with dumb penalties like this taunting penalty with Van Noy doing the headbutt chest
Oh,
bump.
my word.
All
This one here.
This offsides that you just got to tap the guy. Like all of that stuff it's so much. It's not like an organization like the Ravens, a really well-run and smart organization.
Right.
They don't have those mistakes, but when they do, they lose.
And they lost by a touchdown, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, they didn't
Yeah.
even need
No,
to
that
play
wasn't even-
a great game to win.
That's right.
But if you're going to make these kinds of mistakes against a team that is literally in this game every year,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
literally every single year knows how to win it.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for failure.
So let me ask because at the end of the day, all this is right. The question, who deserves the blame, is literally everybody. Having said that, Lamar Jackson is the one who's going to be the MVP. Lamar Jackson is the quarterback, and the quarterback is always going to get a disproportionate amount of the credit or the blame, and he's a superstar.
Yeah.
So what is the right, Nick, you were just saying, what's the right part of this to put on him? What's the right thing to say about him coming out of this game?
I mean, I think it's the problems that we've always seen with Lamar. No quarterback is perfect. We can find ways to criticize every player, but Lamar has always been somebody, for my taste, who's sat in the pocket for too long.
Yeah.
And I know that going back to watching him at Louisville, he's been in the pocket for too long. I know we see those great running, scrambling highlights. If you look back in college, a lot of his best runs were design runs. And it's uncomfortable when people aren't open, or when Spags confuses him. I saw a couple of times he's looking to the wrong side of the field. I'm not a quarterback, and it's obvious to me that you want to be looking to the other side of the field when the blitz is coming from that side so you can recognize it and make the adjustment. He just seemed out of sorts throughout the course of this game. And then the other issue that Lamar has always had, and it's not going to go away, is he's not incredibly accurate. And when there were people open, he was missing them. And the good comes with the bad with Lamar. And I think the good definitely outweighs the bad. But the problem is when you get more bad than good in a situation like this, because when he was good, like he's catching his own passes. He's spinning defensive linemen off of him. And that play where he scored the touchdown, Zay, again, looking the wrong way. Snaps the ball, Zay Flowers is wide open, short 5-yard pass. Lamar's looking the wrong way. He spins around, gets almost sacked, shakes him off, and makes a 50-yard touchdown. It's Lamar, or 40-yard touchdown. It's Lamar being great, but it's also Lamar being inconsistent.
Yeah, you're 100% right. He deserves a fair share of blame. I mean, a fair share of blame here as well. He did not play well. And if you're going to say this, right, if you're going to say the MVP has to be a game changer versus a game manager, whatever this nonsense is, he didn't elevate anybody, right? So if that's going to be the critique, is he didn't elevate anybody, because he did not. The issue for him, though, we talked about this the week before when they made this adjustment against a blitz. And they were like, everything started to be short, and they gave him, if you looked at all their route concepts, they were all deep route concepts, which forced the quarterback to hold the ball in the pocket. So here's my thought. If I'm the fastest dude on the freaking field, at some point I pull that thing down and go run it, right? Like Lamar Jackson, for all that you want to say about him, the one thing that we know, he is an insane athlete and he's faster than most dudes on the field. So at some point, go use that. Who cares what anybody thinks you can't win from the pocket or you can't? Like, don't let the outside affect what you do. Go win the game or find ways.
Quick final word, Hawk, go.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that Lamar needs to play better. But with that being said, to your point about the game plan, it didn't make sense for what this team is. You talk about Mark Andrews, who's an incredible tight end, one of the best in the league, coming back into a game after he had been gone so long. It threw the offense off.
Amen.
It seemed like they were trying to force a 2 tight end system. But that's not what they've used to be successful. So things like that, I feel like contributed. And the reality is Lamar Jackson.
Don't let football
Superman.
get in the way of people's, true opinions.
Look,
You know what I mean?
look, the reality is when things that go that badly, everyone has to wear some of the blame. The quarterback generally tends to get most of the attention. Get up on ESPN. Graziano has got Overreaction Tuesday. So I'll say something that I think people are generally saying, and then Dan will tell us whether or not it's an overreaction. Dan, if we were to say this year was the best chance Lamar Jackson is going to have to win a Super Bowl. Is that an overreaction?
It's not an overreaction. I mean, because it could turn out to be. This is the best team he's ever had, right? And the defense was playing at an elite level, and the Chiefs were kind of, at some point this season, not looking like themselves. And I think this might turn out to have been the best shot that they have in Baltimore with Lamar to win it, and that would be a major source of regret.
So much disappointment there. Meantime, on the other side, I keep hearing this. If I said Andy Reid might retire if they win in a week and a half, is that an overreaction?
I don't think it is. Now, I'm not sitting here saying it's going to happen, but this has kind of been floating out there for a while in NFL circles, the idea that Andy Reid could decide to walk away at some point, and that point could turn out to be this year. I think where I've landed at this point is I put the chances of this happening under 50%, meaning I think it's more likely that he's back next year, but I don't think it's zero.
Which is fat. He's always seemed like a lifer, right? Like the kind of guy who's going to be there longer than this. Anyway, let's go then to another coach. There are people who are saying Dan Campbell's coaching decisions cost the Lions a shot at the Super Bowl. Is that an overreaction?
Of course it's an overreaction. There are a lot of reasons the Lions lost this game, and Dan Campbell deciding to go for it on 4th and short a couple times in the second half is not the chief reason, if it's a reason at all. Look, he made the decision that this was the best play for his team at the time. It's the way he's coached throughout the year. He felt confident that they had, getting 2 yards and the benefit that would come with that outweighed the benefit of trying to kick a longer field goal, and that's it. But there were a lot of other things that went on in the second half of that game that are the reason they lost.